The alpha heard his mate's voice echoing down the hall, speaking to another. He rose out of his chair, unable to keep himself idling with the Omega's proximity so close. It really was Jungkook's fault that he was quickly losing all of his self-control. Most nights, Taehyung was more than happy to wait until they were in the safe confines of their home to instigate any type of passionate interaction. Jungkook, though, had decided to play with fire today. There was no way that Jungkook was unaware of what that picture he'd sent only a few hours ago would do to him. That picture was the cause of Taehyung short-circuiting in his executive meeting, fumbling to click off the screen of his phone, and losing all track of any thought he'd ever had that didn't involve his hands being on top and inside of that gorgeous footy. The image played back in his mind. The photo of Jungkook completely astride his underwear, in front of the bathroom mirror, one ass cheek propped up on the side of the sink, his curves showcased in the pivot he needed to take the picture. It really had sent his heart racing, his blood pooling, all the while his mother stood at the front of the table preparing to lecture them all about profits and losses. At that time, Taehyung couldn't afford for his mind to slip into these territories, especially when he was already falling behind on his fall deadlines due to the few days he had to take off for the heat and rut only a few weeks prior. The alpha was hungry though, he always was for his Omega. Taehyung wet his lips, opening the door of his office, watching as Jungkook laughed at something Tsuyo, the new female alpha sales executive, had said. He wasn't necessarily threatened by her existence. She was mated to her own Omega, and had been since they were young. It was more the wolf inside of him who was becoming quite possessive. Especially when he hadn't seen Jungkook much at all that day, especially when the picture his Omega had sent earlier in the day of him in those sheer, tight, white briefs were making his trousers feel uncomfortably tight. Now, the boy was fully clothed, his usual tight black jeans clutching his curves just right. The light blue unbuttoned shirt he was wearing, showcasing his white tee underneath, had Taehyung wanting to run his hands on the soft tanned skin he knew that fabric was hiding, and he was quickly making a plan of doing so. "Jungkook," he uttered into the hallway in a low soft tone, one he knew was teetering the line of provocation. He was learning what the Omega liked, and Jungkook liked to be wooed. He liked the feeling of being wanted. There was nothing more in that moment that Taehyung wanted than his mate. The Omega's eyes scattered from his conversation to the alpha standing in the doorway and back again. Taehyung didn't miss the small proud smirk that slipped across his lips, still focusing on Tsuyu as he turned slightly, his back pointed directly in Taehyung's line of sight. Taehyung knew what Jungkook was doing. He always knew what he was doing. Sooner or later, the Omega would realize that the alpha had cards of his own to play, and he was not shy in the slightest about using them, especially on his soon-to-be husband. Finally, the co-workers said goodnight, allowing his soulmate to make his way back down the corridor. With every step Jungkook took, Taehyung could feel the tension between them growing with the thirst for each other that was almost foreign. He hadn't felt this type of heat for his soulmate since ignoring their bond all those months ago. The black in the Omega's eyes glittered, and he almost looked intimidated. Taehyung swallowed, only then realizing the pheromones that he was releasing were incredibly potent. Jungkook's hand fell on Taehyung's chest, pushing him back into the office gently. "Easy there, Tiger," the Omega reprimanded quietly. Before all the other rows started flocking to the door shut with a loud thud, one of Taehyung's hands resting just above Jungkook's head, as the other softly lifted the boy's chin. He brushed their noses together slightly, basking in the way the Omega's breathing was quickly accelerating in its pace. "You've been naughty," Taehyung informed him. "Don't know." Jungkook air hitched in his throat. "What you're talking about?" "Oh, yes." Taehyung took a step closer, their stomachs grazing. "You do?" Jungkook's obedient black eyes were making him weak, while simultaneously making the wolf within him strong. He pressed his crotch against the Omega, attempting to prove his point. "You know what you did, Alpha," Jungkook uttered softly, the hints of a whine interlaced in the syllables. Taehyung only grunted in response, allowing their noses to brush once more before he leaned down and began kissing Jungkook's neck softly. His tongue grazed the bite mark he'd made, taking extra love and care to every inch of that connection. It was undoubtedly the best decision he'd ever made, making this very boy his. Having Jungkook pressed up against his office door as he attempted to keep his moans quiet was only adding to his desire. He wanted the Omega name and owning up to those promiscuous promises he'd been making all day long. Taehyung lifted his mouth, taking some time to breathe. "You like that?" Jungkook swallowed. "You were ignoring me," Jungkook uttered. "Don't like when you ignore me," the Alpha hummed, kissing towards Jungkook's collarbone. "So, another kiss." "You went into the bathroom," finger grazed over the Omega's lips, "and decided to tease me." Jungkook gulped. "Is that what you're planning?" "No, Alpha," the Omega stuttered. Taehyung wasn't at all convinced. So, he slowly slipped the silk button down off of his mate's shoulders. "I'm not quite sure that's the truth, kitten." Jungkook let out the smallest of whines, gripping Taehyung's belt. The aroma of citrus was washing over them both now. The longer he went on, the closer he could see the clouding of Jungkook's eyes, the first stages of Jungkook wolf beginning to take over. He loved this boy more than anything in the world. His snarky and sassy attitude, and adored the stubborn righteousness. He'd be a fibbing fool though, if he didn't admit that he also loved the way the Omega gave in to him. Jungkook let him take him in almost any way he wanted to. "Alpha," Jungkook groaned again, his eyes closing. Taehyung allowed his hands to slip under the white t-shirt, to feel the warm soft skin of his Omega. "You tempt me," he whispered into his ear, "you make me crave every inch of you." Jungkook released a low moan, and Taehyung was done playing. Then, in one fell swoop, his tongue was exploring his mate, recognizing every piece he'd already ingrained into his memory. Being apart from Jungkook almost always left his soul feeling empty, bits and pieces of him slipping away as the hours passed. When they were reunited though, every atom in his body ignited. He was reborn again, baptized in the Omega's glow. He wanted every second of his life to feel like this, to feel how he felt when kissing Jungkook. The Omega nipped his bottom lip at the same time he gripped both of the Alpha's biceps, bringing Taehyung back to the present moment. Taehyung groaned in response, his hands finding his mate's waist, pressing his spine up against the cold wood, twirling their tongues together in a fit of passion. They were attempting to breathe into each other, hands rubbing over each other's chests and arms. It was as if they couldn't get enough of each other, and really, Taehyung couldn't. No amount of Jungkook could ever be enough. "Remember what you wanted," Taehyung said, pulling away, his fingers moving to quickly lock the door. Jungkook only stared at the Alpha. Taehyung allowed a devilish smirk to shine through. "Come on, kitten, what is it you were saying earlier? Something about under my desk? Refresh my mind, will you?" Jungkook's eyes were going grey, his hands pressed to the wood behind his back. Still, he couldn't manage to finish his statement. The alpha had learned in the time they'd been mated that as lewd as his Omega's mouth was, as big of a game he talked, Jungkook was quite sure when it came to the real thing. "Just tell me, baby," Taehyung urged, ripping the shirt right off of his own back. "What did you say?" Jungkook's hands moved to softly graze the alpha's stomach, tracing the lines of his muscles. "I said," I swallowed. Another whine escaped his voice. Taehyung knelt down, his hands slowly pulling at the tight fabric around the Omega's thighs. As Jungkook obliged to Taehyung's movements, stepping out of his trousers, Taehyung looked up, watching as Jungkook watched him, biting his lip nervously. In an attempt to soothe his mate, Taehyung's hands caressed Jungkook's ass as he kissed the boy, causing Jungkook to let out a soft cry of pleasure. The alpha liked it. He liked hearing all those needy noises. He made quick work of the need, and Jungkook almost lost his balance. In response, Taehyung placed a hand on the Omega's thighs, chuckling to himself. "Easy. What if someone hears?" Jungkook whispered. "Well," Taehyung pulled at the boy's waist as he stood, the warm skin feeling like home for his fingertips. "You weren't worried about that when I was in my executive meeting sending me scandalous photos." He placed a gentle kiss on his mate's lips, letting them linger as he spoke again. "Were you?" The echo of the boy's swallow reverberated through the walls of the alpha's office.